Hey, this is Surya, and I've been running my own AI agency for the past 1 year. And I've worked with 15 plus businesses, and I've built 100 plus workflows for them that have automated their backend processes and tasks. And the biggest problem that I was facing, which I'm sure a lot of you guys could resonate with, is that service delivery takes a lot of time off your plate, and you don't really have time to market and do sales on behalf of your business, which is very, very important if you want to scale your business. So, so I decided that in order for me to grow, I would need to build a system that could automate service delivery for me because like hiring people and all is quite a headache. You have to first of all understand if they are good at what they do, and they may take holidays or they may not really communicate well. They may get sick. Like there's a lot of things that can happen when you hire people, and it's just a biggest drain of energy and time, which as a business owner you uh, have the least, right? So I wanted to create a system that could use AI to automate delivery for my agency. And what happened was after I implemented this, for the past 2 months, I've basically after I eat my lunch and I have 3-4 hours of window in the afternoon where I feel very lazy to do any work. I just hook up Netflix. I watch series there, and I let the AI do the task, the client delivery that it needs to do. I just review it once in a while. So after every 20 minutes, I'm like just checking and seeing what it's doing. So like it's pretty much changed my entire service delivery process, and I'm sure you can do the same. So the way you can do this is using Claude Code. So if you don't know what that is, it's basically a tool by a company called Anthropic, which I'm sure you've heard of. It's a pretty famous company now. So they have an LLM, AI called Claude, which basically does what you tell it to do. So Claude Code is inside your computer. It has access to your files. It can execute tasks, and it can basically do everything that you want on behalf of you. So don't really have to lift a finger. And that's the most powerful part of Claude Code because it basically automates entire boring parts of the business that are very, very important but are very time consuming. So the way you can basically do this for your own online business or service based business is you must have a lot of processes, right? So you have SOPs, you have documents laid out, you have knowledge bases of that and checklists that needs to be followed. So if you have that, then you can use that to basically tell Claude, and it can do all of those things for you. So here's how. Let's say you have a online space where you have like basically content based. You have a section called for content where you're generating content. Then you have admin and onboarding stuff, which also needs to be there. And then you have service delivery, right? And in service delivery, you may have multiple like services, right? SEO, AI, SEO, then content, SMMA, whatever it is. You can have multiple brackets of services. So what you do is first you list out an instruction manual of what needs to be done. So let's say if I'm taking content, for example, the first step is ideation. So you need to come up with a good content ideas, right? So you have to have a system of how you generate ideas, how you research on ideas, and how you research the topics on those. So once you have that, then you have the research part on the contents. You want to do further research once you have an idea, right? And then you have the creating the content, which is basically if you're trying to create a LinkedIn post, you need to have the LinkedIn post ready after you have the results, right? And the next step could be posting them. So this is how you could basically have a step-by-step instruction, just in plain English, of how all the processes in your business are done. Same for admin one. So let's say you have an onboarding sequence. So this could be like like start. starter email. So you basically have a onboarding email that you send to each client. Then you have like forms and all that you give to clients to basically sign and all of those stuff, all of the things that are repeatable for your business that you're repeating every single time. Just a little bit of customization, you could basically use AI to do that. So once you have all of these processes laid out, the next thing what you can do is have a detailed description of each of the process, and then give it context on what is good or what is bad. Because AI without context is like it basically makes a difference between um, everything. So then for each content, for each process, have a knowledge base. So what happens is basically in that knowledge base, it's nothing but a file that contains all of the major information that you want to provide to the AI. So let's say there is a specific type of hooks that you want for your LinkedIn content, right? So you could have a file that basically has all of the hooks in there, and you can say to it, hey, these are the hooks that are working, and this is how you can create the LinkedIn post, right? So you give it a lot of examples of what is working, what is not. You give it context on your own business, which is very, very important. So So in that context, you basically tell it what your business is about. You maybe upload your website, then have a detailed description of what the services you provide, the clients that you work with, so that it has all of the context that it needs. That is basically the memory of your business that the AI has. So now you have all of this knowledge. Now the AI will basically take this knowledge that you have. It has all of the processes that you have listed out. Then it could basically execute the same things that you've talked about because it has all of the information. So you could do this for service delivery as well. So let's say you have an SEO based agency. So what you do is basically you research on keywords, then you come up with blog post, and then you analyze competitors and all. So you could basically lay out every single process, have an SOP, and have Claude Code basically do that for you. So it's going to 10x your productivity just because it has all of the context and it has information of how you do the services. So the next thing after you have given it the knowledge and the step-by-step procedure, you need to give it the set of tools. So if you don't really know what tools is, it's basically your AI is kind of the brain, and tools are its arms and legs that gives its the ability to do the task. So if you do not have a tool, essentially your AI is just a chatbot. So it's like any other chatbot, Chat GPT or Grok or Gemini. Without the tools, it cannot really perform anything that gives value to you, right? So in tools are nothing but basically like you have given it some access, so and some things that it could use to execute the processes of your business. So one thing could be you have given it access to your go high level, right? So you have a go high level for all of your CRM and any kind of like sub accounts and stuff. So what could happen is maybe, let's say, you onboard in a client, then you have to create a sub account for them. So what you could do is basically give access to go high level to Cloud Code, and it could create the sub account with all the required information of the client that you provided, and it's going to do that for you, and it's going to tell you that it did all of the. So it could be a go high level of CRM, then it could be Slack, so that it can actually communicate to if it wants to. It could be, any kind of a database. So you could have access to Google Sheets, Airtable, and even your workflows automation. So you could give it access to N10. and all, and it could basically create workflows that automate tasks for your business. And this is what makes it different from everything else, because it's able to execute all of this task. It's has uh, it can basically do everything that you want it to do as long as it has access to this. So let's do a quick recap before we move forward. So you have your online business, you have your context of the business, what you do, what services you provide, your website link, any other information that you want AI to know. Could be anything, maybe your testimonials of your clients, or any like your client informations and stuff like that, right? And then you have all of your processes list out. So whatever you have, onboarding, service delivery, content based system, lead generation. Inside lead generation, you maybe have cold emails that you're doing. So each process has been laid out, and then each process has a step by step checklist or task to do, which is very detailed and very like easy to follow and straightforward. Because think of AI just like a employed, like an intern, because it needs all of this information. It will basically have, once it knows what it needs to do, it can do all of that. So that's why you need to provide this, so that it can produce good quality results. So once you have this, then the next part would be the knowledge base. So you have given it how to do the process. The next thing you need to tell is what the output could look like, and what's a good output and what's a bad output, because that makes them smarter. So if you differentiate between good output and bad output, and tell AI this is good output versus this is bad output, it knows what to produce and what not to. And after knowledge bases, you have the tools, right? So this is basically your arms and legs, which do all of the tasks for you. So you provide access to Go High Level, Slack, your databases, your automation workflows, anything that you can think of, that you use on a daily basis. So this is what a good process looks like, and your entire brain is nothing but Claude Code. Now, a very important step of why you would think Claude Code is better, and it is better than most other chatbots that you see, is something called self-annealing loop. So, what is in simple terms, it's basically a feedback loop, right? So, you tell AI, "Hey, do this for me," and you have given it all of the information, and still, what happens is it sometimes produces very bad output, or something is not right, right? So what you could do is tell it, hey, this is the mistake that you have made, and I do not want to see this mistake. Please improve on this. So what it's going to do is basically it has something called a system instruction, which is basically like a set of instructions that it will follow every single time, so that it maintains repeatability, scalability, and reliability. So if something, let's say it makes something wrong, what it's going to do is going to update the system instruction, which will basically act as a memory. So let's say you produced a LinkedIn post, but the body of the post wasn't good. So you could tell the AI, hey, this is what was wrong. You need to change this. So, and you need to update the instructions so that it does not make the same mistake. So the AI will basically go into a feedback loop. It will see what you meant it, and it's going to update the system instruction so that the same mistake is not being made. This basically makes it so, let's say you are working with Claude Code and you're working with this AI for weeks. Now what happens is it makes one mistake, you identify that, you tell it, it updates that, it never makes the same mistake. And what happens is after quite a few hours of you quite a few weeks and months of using it, the chances of error goes dramatically down because you have updated the instructions so many times that it knows what to follow and what not to follow. And that's why it becomes a loop of self annealing, so it can basically improve on its own without you intervening anything. So that's the most powerful part of Cloud Code, any kind of agentic CLI system that you see out there. This makes it always learning, so it is always improving. Now, once you have the system instructions and everything, we are moving into a bit more advanced topics now. I'm just going to describe them in brief, but this itself, it can automate 90% of your task. And once you apply these systems of tools, memory, and processes, you'll have basically created your own AI beast that does all of the things. It's basically a Jarvis from Iron Man. So yeah, that's how you could do it. So let's just summarize again, so that we know where we are. So we have our context, which is basically a memory of our business, what we do, what processes we have, and everything. And inside the processes, we have listed out everything one by one. And inside each process, we have a step by step guide on what to follow, how each sub process looks like. And in each sub process, we have detailed description of how you can perform this, right? And then you have a knowledge base for that process of what is the end output. So in that you basically have your examples as well. So you give it a lot of examples, a lot of context on what is good, what is bad, and then it's going to output based on that. And then you have your set of tools, which basically allows the AI to perform certain actions that you want it to do once you're given it access. And then you have your system instructions, which is basically like independent of all of this. It basically includes all of this instructions in brief, so it knows what to do and what not to do. And once it performs a task, you can basically it enters a feedback loop. So if the task was performed right, nothing changes. But if it was performed poorly, or if there was something that could have been improved, it goes to system instruction. It updates the instruction to make sure that nothing happens. You have a cell. Last thing is, you could basically have multiple agents doing this for you. So let's say you have an agent manager whose sole purpose is basically acting as a manager role. It has multiple, it basically handles multiple agents. And what is an agent? Agent is nothing but what we call this system. It has tools, it has system instructions, it has all of these processes, all of this memory. This itself is called an AI agent because it can perform all of this task. So this is what an agent is called. And inside you have, what you could do is basically you can have an agent manager. After you have played with this, you could then the next step would be to have an agent manager, which basically has a set of agents that do task. So you could have a agent. So you can have a planning agent. A planning agent is just the agent that will basically plan out entire steps, entire processes that needs to be done before the task is executed. So it basically has an internal checklist that it needs to follow every time, that this is what it needs to do in order to produce the desired output. The next thing would be an execution agent. So this agent basically performs the task. It has the tools that we have. It performs that task. The next thing could be you have an agent that just reviews everything. So you have an agent manager which is basically managing all of these agents. So you could think of this as a manager agent and this as employee agents that have specific tasks that they need to perform. So you have the planning agent which basically plans everything. You have the execution agent which basically does the task that is intended, and then you can basically have the review agent which basically reviews the execution agent and make sure everything is up to it and the output is great. If it isn't, it just goes to the feedback loop, updates the instructions, and tells the execution agent to perform again, so that it is perfect. And that is how you could basically build your own AI agent team using Claude Code, and you could basically 10x your productivity, and you don't really have to hire new people for BAs or anything. It's like bam, that this process is done, bam, this process is done, and you're pretty much good to go. You kind of are becoming a one person team that beats hundreds of persons because um, you know how to orchestrate and how to work with these agents. So this is how you can actually build a beast of a AI system that actually does work for you and does work reliably for you. Make sure to hit the subscribe button if you like this video, and I'll be hitting with more value content soon. Thanks. Bye bye.